I'm Jamieson Bunn, the Communications Program Manager for the City of Petaluma and the host of One Petaluma, your local government podcast. In this episode, we're taking a look at Petaluma's Safe Streets program. If you receive our community update emails, which you can get by going to cityofpetaluma.org/subscribe, then you may have seen our special edition on the Safe Streets program in your inboxes in April. It outlined some of the major initiatives we're working on to make our streets safer across town, like upgrading and increasing the number of bike lanes, partnering with the Safe Routes to School Task Force to improve safety near our schools, and adding red paint to the curbs around intersections to prevent parking too close to the stop signs. Based on what we see in social media comments across our platforms, however, there's a lot of public debate about transportation in Petaluma. For this episode, I spoke with Gina Benedetti-Petnic, Interim Director of Public Works, Jeff Stutsman, Deputy Director of Operations, and Bjorn Griepenburg, Active Transportation Manager. Jessica Medina from our Communications Department, who you met in our first episode, will also be joining us. Jeff and Bjorn are engineers who work together on traffic improvements and other major projects, while Gina oversees infrastructure across Petaluma. I had a lot of questions for this episode because I think street improvements are the most tangible way most of us experience city government. You may not see the work of our building permit technicians or our award-winning finance department on a daily basis, but the pothole you have to avoid every time you pull out of your driveway, that's where the work of city staff, specifically our Public Works and Utilities team, makes a real difference you can see every day. So because this work is so impactful and so essential to life here in Petaluma, I wanted to ask some questions about who makes the decisions about our roads, how do we get the community's input, and what happens when that feedback isn't cut and dry. Thankfully, Gina, Jeff, Bjorn, and Jessica have the answers, and we're excited to share a conversation with you. So without further ado, let's talk street improvements.
I'm Gina Benedetti-Petnic, and I am the Interim Director right now of Public Works and Utilities in Petaluma. And I've been with the city about 5.5 years. Prior to that, I had a career in construction management and structural engineering as a consultant for many, many years. And so I'm relatively new to public service and have learned so very much in the last 5 years. It's been quite an adventure and really rewarding, fascinating, interesting, and working with the likes of Bjorn and Jeff here, who are very focused experts in streets and active transportation, and other members of the Public Works team, some of them very focused on water conservation, others on recycled water, others on the utility infrastructure, all of the pipes that are under the ground. And we have facilities experts. Public Works has a pretty broad palette, really, of work and types of projects in the city.
My name is Jeff Stutsman, Deputy Director of Operations for the Street Division, and I've been with the city for about 7 years now.
What do you do as Deputy Director of Operations? What does that role entail?
The job entails managing and overseeing our streets department, which includes our streets division, our traffic operations side, traffic engineering, as well as assisting with oversight of our capital improvements division as part of the traffic engineering and kind of street payment projects.
Hi, I'm Bjorn Griepenburg, project manager and transportation planner with our capital improvements division within Public Works and Utilities.
And how long have you been at the city?
And I've been with the city for almost two years now.
How did you get into this line of work?
You know, I've always been really interested in I'll call it the built environment, sort of the way that we experience and navigate around cities and places. I actually grew up in West Petaluma, walking distance from downtown, and pretty much was able growing up to walk to almost everything. I walked to my friends' houses, I walked to school, I walked downtown, I biked around the neighborhood a lot. And so I was fortunate enough to really have kind of what I would call a free-range childhood where I got to explore Petaluma sort of on my own, which was, in retrospect, a really cool childhood. and just, I think that upbringing gave me a real appreciation for for the way we design our streets and public spaces.
Lest I use a word that might upset people, Petaluma has a reputation for really terrible roads. And on the internet, people joke about Potholuma as our city nickname. So I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about why that is and how the roads got so bad in the first place.
After the recession in 2008, we lost a lot of our funding, we lost a lot of our staff, and we lost our ability to really be proactive in the community. We became a very reactive Public Works and City of Petaluma, and the services, while we were always a full-service city and considered ourselves that and tried to be responsive to the community, it was very hard with our hands tied and limited, very, very strictly limited budgets. So we're with a passage of Measure U, a sales tax, and bonding that was done off of those funds, it really gave a huge infusion of dollars to the city of Petaluma to build our staff resources, what we call fiscal sustainability, so that we would have the people there to start doing the work and responding to the demands in the community, and to even have enough ears to hear what was being said to us from the community, to be listening actively and learning where the highest needs were that had long been unmet. Infrastructure in Petaluma has benefited tremendously from the resources that we have now. So it's super exciting. And we're able to do things that we just never were before.
That's amazing.
It's really gratifying.
When Measure U passed, and then finally those funds, the voter-approved sales tax funds, started to come in, how do you prioritize projects that you can finally afford to implement when we probably had a tremendous amount of need across the city?
Yeah, there was a huge backlog of projects, and in I think those early months and first year or so, we were pretty reactive. There was huge unmet need, and there were projects that were, on the brink of being liabilities and risks. And so those were, those jumped up at us, and some of those are what we tackled first. But now that we've had some breathing room, we've gotten some of those big ones out of the way, and as the federal and state funding landscape has been also changing during that same time, we've been able to take a step back and really focus on how we want to prioritize that unmet need.
The main underlying cause, I think, of our roads and why we have such bad roads is the soils that Petaluma is built on. I think we all recognize it and see it in some form or fashion. If we're gardening in the backyard or landscaping, it's the clays that we have that's very... It does a number on our roads. To fix that, we have to over-design our roads because of that subsoil, that clay. So that's why you see a lot of the roads, specifically on the west side or the east side, failing, because it's that clay soil, that expansive soil is really causing a havoc. So when we're designing roads these days, we're really reconstructing it. We're doing kind of what they call full depth reclamation, where it's mixing in the subgrade soil with cement or lime to create a kind of a solid base to pave over it, because the expansive soil is so hard to work with that you're building something to bridge over it. But to do that costs money, right? So to reconstruct the roads costs a lot more money than it would be just to do another type of treatment. And we're also looking at different cost-effective solutions as well. We've tried many different options in Petaluma to try to find that most cost-effective solution. So we've tried full depth reclamation with cement, like on Snow Mountain Parkway, which was very successful. We're doing a very similar process on Maria Drive that used lime and cement, so a different combination because of the subsoils out there. And then we've also done recycling on Snow Mountain Parkway and North McDowell, which was reutilizing the existing asphalt grindings and creating a new type of asphalt in a batch plant on site. So we didn't have to truck anything off site. We didn't have to dispose of any of the existing asphalt, and was able to reuse kind of that existing resource that was out there.
Interesting. So when you're reconstructing a road, are you doing soil samples for every area that you're going to cover and figuring out what's the best way to pave that specific road, as opposed to just coming up with one plan for the whole city?
Yeah. So each project, when we get down to a kind of a project specific level, we get soil samples, kind of that representational of that road, and we come up with some type of design that meets those needs. And obviously those needs kind of are, what kind of soils are you dealing with? What's the existing thickness of the asphalt and subgrade? Goes into traffic volumes. Is it a truck route? So all those different elements play a role into kind of that pavement design and how thick the road needs to be and the treatment type.
I think the other interesting thing about the ways that we are kind of addressing our infrastructure needs on the paving side, we are really looking at these projects as crucial opportunities to address utilities and accessibility and stormwater and other complete streets. That means complete streets meaning bicycle and pedestrian improvements. So we're really, where in years past, the city may have just gone in on a paving project and basically replaced the roadway as it was. We're really carefully looking at all of the opportunities to improve everything about the street, not just the pavement surface. And that takes a little bit more upfront work, right? We're spending more time in the planning and design stages. We're doing more community engagement as we're developing those plans and designs. But hopefully people are seeing that payoff and seeing that our streets are really being improved for everyone with these paving projects.
I'm hesitant to bring this up, but I do think it's kind of an interesting angle, and I mentioned this when you guys got here. When Bjorn and Jeff arrived, Jeff rolled up in a large truck and Bjorn biked over here. And we see this a lot in our social media engagement where people are, sometimes they see certain bike improvements and feel that that's isolating for folks who are drivers. And some people who love biking around Petaluma feel like we're not making enough bike improvements fast enough. So when you're thinking about traffic design and traffic flow, how do you balance the needs of drivers versus the needs of bikers? And are there places where those needs actually intersect?
It's a really good question. And I'm glad you asked it because we do hear it. We hear a lot that, I think the criticism of our work is that we are, we're trying to force people out of their cars, for example, something that I see and hear a lot. And that's absolutely not what we are trying to do. We recognize that driving, along with walking, biking, all have important roles to play in how people get around Petaluma. And our city actually has a complete streets policy that where council directs us to really design our streets considering the needs of all road users, whether those are people who are driving, walking, biking, people with mobility impairments, right? So we're really trying to be mindful of that in all of our projects. Our goal is to make all of these options safe, accessible, and appealing for people so that if there is someone out there who is able or willing to walk or bike, they feel comfortable doing so, and they have a dignified, safe experience navigating the city on 2 feet or in a wheelchair or on a bike, as well as in a car. I think where we get into kind of the dialogue around, making lives hard for people who drive is where we are redesigning our streets because we're really, for decades, streets were designed pretty much around the needs of the automobile only, right? They were not, previous generations of traffic engineers were not really considering the needs of people who walk and bike. And so we are, to some degree, undoing a lot of that. We're finding that for many years, Petaluma's roads, especially when you go on the east side of town, they were overbuilt, to be quite honest. The lanes are too wide. They're much wider than is needed. The number of lanes is much greater than the level of traffic. So we're seeing a lot of opportunities to kind of right size our streets, right? Narrow the lanes a little bit, which has a traffic calming benefit and a safety benefit. And then also, we've had a couple of really successful instances where we've actually reduced the number of lanes without adversely impacting traffic. And then we're able to carve out some more space for safer bike lanes and sidewalks and other improvements.
And I would also add just that I think back to our original question about designing roads for bikes versus roads. I think it's not designing for one or the other, but I feel like we're enhancing our roads for our current environment. Petaluma Boulevard South is a good example. It used to be Highway 101. It had a need to move cars fast in a certain manner. Nowadays, it's not used that way. So by being able to change it, reduce the lanes, create a two-way left turn lane for vehicles to turn into businesses or homes, it improves operation. It allows opportunities for bikes without negatively impacting congestion or vehicle speed. So it all has benefits. So it's like enhancing the roads that we have with improved facilities.
So speaking of taking that holistic look at our streets, your team is now working on the city's active transportation plan for pedestrians and bike improvements, with the aim of rolling that out to the community and city council soon for feedback. Now, we have a lot of plans in the city of Petaluma that guide everything that we do, and there are reasons for that. But my understanding of the active transportation plan is that it is about transportation that is physically active, that it is walking and biking. But is that true, or does it entail more than that?
A bit more. I like to think of it as a mobility plan. So for sure, at the very least, it's actively walking, biking, scootering, wheeling, whatever it is, right? Not in a pod, not in a vehicle. But it incorporates, in my mind, it also incorporates all kinds of alternative transportation modes, including transit too. So that's why I like to think of it as mobility. That particular plan, Bjorn will speak to it. He's been engaged working on that now for a bit and intimately with the pedestrian and bicycle advisory committee, who've taken a leadership role in steering and guiding and advising as we develop the plan with our consultant, Fair and Peers, and with Bjorn as our liaison to that Bike and Ped advisory group. And he can speak to some more specifics on it.
Yeah, so Gina did a great job describing what the active transportation plan is and does. It really is the blueprint for all things walking, biking, and rolling in the city. So that could include specific infrastructure improvements, right? It identifies where our envisioned bike routes are, right? Where we have existing bike routes, where we need to improve bike routes, where we need to add new ones. It also identifies needs, obviously, for pedestrian infrastructure, whether those are new or improved crosswalks, sidewalks, multi-use trails. And so that's kind of the infrastructure piece of the active transportation plan. Then there's also the programming side, where we look at different strategies in education, encouragement, and enforcement that might help promote and improve active transportation. So some good examples of those programs, actually a fantastic example of a program, and possibly a little segue here, is our Safe Routes to School task force, which was just launched, I want to say last fall. And it's a partnership between the city of Petaluma, both our public works department and our police department, as well as Sonoma County Safe Routes to School, which is a nonprofit organization. And Cool Petaluma has gotten involved. They're also a local nonprofit that's working on promoting ways that people can become more engaged in climate action. And then obviously, last but not least, all of our school communities and leadership. So we've the main two districts that we work with are Petaluma City Schools, three districts, Petaluma City Schools, Old Adobe, and also WA, the three biggest school districts in the city. And so for the task force, we really focus in on the different ways we can improve walking and biking at each of the campuses. And like the active transportation plan, we're looking at infrastructure improvements around the schools, but we're also looking at promotional events. What are, walk and roll Wednesdays, walk and bike to school days, education for students on how to walk and bike more safely and navigate our streets more safely. And all of that programming really, by the way, is offered by Sonoma County Safe Routes to School. They do an amazing job with that. But yeah, so we've got this partnership. We have a monthly meeting. We meet on the third Thursday of every month at 4:00.
And we should clarify, these are public meetings. So anybody who is interested can come and join and listen and find out more, right?
Yeah, so all of the meetings are advertised at sonomasaferoutes.org. And then you can go to the Events and Plans tab and click Task Forces and Collaborations, and then find more information about the Petaluma Task Force. So like I said, third Thursday, 4 o'clock. The way we're approaching this is we've picked one school per month to focus on. And early in the month, we will go out and actually do a walk audit where we walk the streets in the neighborhood around the school with police, public works, parents, school leadership, and we identify needed safety improvements around the schools. And then later in the month, we'll come back and we will debrief that walk audit. And then we'll also give Sonoma County Safe Routes an opportunity to brainstorm some of the educational and encouragement opportunities that they see that could further promote walking and biking at schools. And really all of this is done with the goal of helping, get our kids more active, right? It's better for them if they have the ability to walk and bike to school. There's so much research that shows that not only is it better for their health, but it's better for their all-around well-being. And it's a great way for them to start the day and end the day.
And a lot of those items that come out of the Safe Routes School audit and walk audits ends up in operations as a work order or goes to a quick build. So a lot of these are quick items that they're very easy to get construct, but they make a big impact, from different loading zones to just bulb outs at certain intersections to traffic timing or striping on the ground. So it has a very large positive impact to our community. Yeah,
we had a walk audit. This has happened at almost every walk audit where I noticed something that isn't working. A couple months ago, it was a flashing beacon, a crosswalk beacon in front of a school. And the crossing guard who's been there for years said, "Oh yeah, that hasn't worked in years. I just never knew, who to tell about it." And because we went on this walk audit, it was, told Jeff about it and it was fixed the next day, right? So wow. That's the power of getting out and being on the street, with the folks who know know the schools the best.
How do you look at street repairs or street design in other jurisdictions, other cities, or even other states to figure out what's going to work for Petaluma in terms of slowing traffic or, keeping us all a little bit safer?
Yeah, I mean, we're always looking to the leading research, best practices, the leading cities, and looking for inspiration everywhere, whether that's here in the Bay Area or beyond. We're looking all over North America for examples of creative traffic calming, bicycle, and pedestrian improvements.
So it sounds like you're really looking at a lot of different information sources. There's hard data, there's information from other agencies, and then there's the community feedback that is also giving us, input about how people are using the streets. So can we talk a little bit about how we gather that feedback and what we're kind of hearing from the community about their needs and their concerns? Jessica, do you want to talk about how we gather some of that information?
Hi, I'm Jessica Medina. I serve as Communications Project Manager for the City of Petaluma for our Capital Improvements Program and other special projects. The role of communications in supporting public works in our capital improvements program, I think, is to tell the story of these projects that we're doing to the community. So to make sure the community understands the work that's going on, why we're doing the work, the benefit it will provide the community for us to do this work. So the storytelling piece is one side I see of communications in this area. And then another side is gathering feedback. So we want to tell the story, but we also want to hear what the community wants and needs. And we go about that in several ways. We have some standard channels that we put out information on. So, let's say we're working on the Caulfield Bridge project and we're going to have an upcoming meeting. So we'll send out postcards to the neighborhood or maybe a citywide postcard inviting people to come to the meeting. We'll put a little call out in our community update email and on our social media channels. For many projects, we'll have a dedicated subscriber list where we've asked people to sign up to receive project updates. So we'll send out an email to people that way. Sometimes we'll put an ad in the Argus. So we have all of these channels that we get the word out. And sometimes we'll engage with stakeholders in certain projects. So if we're doing a project that's near a school, we may contact the school and say, hey, we're going to be doing this project. It'd be great if you could get the word out about it to your network. And then we'll often hold a meeting, maybe a series of public meetings if it's a large project, and invite the community in. Depending on the project, there's different goals with those meetings. One could be to gather community feedback. Like we could come at a very early stage and say, hey, we're thinking of doing this project. We want to hear what you think about it, or what are your concerns around this specific topic, and then allow that community input to really shape the direction of the project. I think a good example of that recently was a series of meetings we had around the Howard Street Improvement Project that's going to be upcoming, where we really were able to hear a lot of the concerns about the community and then address those specifically in the design. Or sometimes with maybe smaller projects, or maybe projects that are really more safety focused, where it's not necessarily up for discussion, but it's something that needs to happen. Our goal is to just inform the community what's happening or what is imminent, and invite them to come and learn about it and ask questions, but we're not necessarily able to change the course of that project based on the community input.
When you have something where, like, for example, the recent Caulfield meeting, you had people who were very excited about an upcoming bridge. You had people who were very opposed to the bridge. You had people who just wanted to learn more. So when you get that kind of feedback where it's hard to necessarily balance everybody's wants, or to you can't give everybody what they necessarily are asking for. How do you take that kind of feedback into account when you're making plans for something that's coming down the pipeline?
That's a good question. I think I loved that meeting because I felt like it was a really great example of the entire spectrum showing up to hear what we had to say, bring their concerns to the table. You know, we had people that specifically purchased a home in that neighborhood because they knew a bridge might be coming. And then we had people who were vehemently against the idea of having a bridge. So to have everybody in one room and sort of tell the story of the project and what our thoughts were and what we see the benefit to the community being, and also have the opportunity to hear that wide of a range of feedback and concerns from both ends of the spectrum, I just felt was a really great example of public process and the work that we're trying to do. And we were so grateful to everybody who showed up, you know, even if they were really against the bridge, you know, to show up and have your voice heard and tell us to our face what you think. Like, I thought it was really good. But I'll let maybe Bjorn or Gina speak to the other part of the, what do we do with that?
One of the things that I like to think about, I mean, that meeting was a great opportunity to engage at a very authentic level with not a monochrome audience. And really, when we generally listen and we meet them at whatever place they're at as individuals with their concerns, and they state them, some of them upset, you know, really passionately upset, others excited, others just, you know, just wanted to come learn about it, checking it out, right? The full spectrum. I find, and we've done this more than once now, where once we engage and listen, and we are generally interested in hearing where the concerns are, not just, hey, I don't want that project. I don't want that project because it's going to do this. I'm worried about that. I'm scared it might be too big. I'm worried it's going to be too noisy. It's too close to me. I have children, right? It's all of those things. But when we start learning those details, it helps us focus on how we can build a better project to take those things into account. So can we solve for everyone and all the concerns? Never. And there will always be folks that will not see the final project the way they wanted it to. But can we learn from those conversations? For sure. And can we use them to improve the project? Absolutely. And help us focus the work that we do with our consultants, what the questions we're asking our consultants. Hey, on the traffic study, can you take a closer look at this? Someone raised this question. And we want to learn more about that and see what we can do with that and how that might affect the way we approach the design for this intersection or for that abutment or for those signals, whatever it might be. And it does make a difference. I think over time, when people engage in a project, when the community or a neighborhood is really paying attention and talking to us and staying with the process as we go through it, they see that we are adjusting those projects and taking into account what we're hearing.
We've covered almost all of the questions that I wrote, but we could do kind of around the table. What do you find rewarding about working for local government? So Gina, would you like to say to start and talk about your experience in local government?
Yeah, so my experience and some of the most rewarding things that I've found in the last few years really center around the ability to make positive change and see it happen. It isn't just planning it. It isn't just engineering it. It isn't talking about it. It's actually watching the change happen and watching it improve the quality of life in this town. For me, particularly, born and raised here, I grew up in this town. I've seen a tremendous amount of change here. Not all of it positive, but, for the most part, great change. It's a healthy community, and it's a caring community, and it's becoming more and more a very vibrant community financially, and it's wonderful to see a downtown that, as a younger human, maybe in my early teens, it was scary to be downtown on a weeknight. It was dark. No one was out. There weren't restaurants open. There wasn't music playing. It was not there. And over the years, to see this grow into such a fun and wonderful, welcoming town with young families still coming and seniors staying and enjoying it and aging in place. And for those people to have those experiences, we have to keep changing how we create this town and what that infrastructure is to support all those incredible things. And to be a part of that, that's super rewarding. And it's really fun. I mean, you can see the results. So, yeah.
Great answer. How about you, Bjorn?
I mean, Gina definitely stole my thunder. I think all of us in government, what we ultimately want to see we want to see the fruits of our labor, right? So I spend a lot of time on the planning side of the projects, right? Doing a lot of the early groundwork to help figure out where our priorities are, and then figure out kind of doing the early project development, early design work, especially on our streets projects. And so no one wants to produce a plan that goes and collects dust on a bookshelf somewhere. We want to see things get built, and we want to see our streets and our public spaces be enhanced to become safer, more accessible, more beautiful, and just we want to help contribute to that fabric of our city. So whether it's seeing a street get repaved with new curb ramps that someone with a stroller or a walker can actually navigate for the first time in decades, or just seeing a new bike rack that someone can use near a coffee shop or city facility, to me that's really rewarding.
What's challenging about working in local government?
Navigating kind of the rules that we have to follow to get some of this stuff done. Because on the flip side, some of the stuff is very easy to do, but there's a lot of requirements that go along with it, from bidding to contracting to environmental, that kind of pose a challenge to some of this, which some people may think is quick and easy. It may be, but there's a lot of stuff in the way of it that we have to navigate.
Bjorn?
I had a challenge that came to mind, and it very much relates to the work that Jeff does. I think it's a curse and a blessing, working and living in the same city. It's really hard to kind of turn it off, right? Every time I leave my house, I will probably run into something and see something that needs to be fixed or changed in some way. And Jeff is always on the receiving end of those requests, because I'll see signal timing issues or opportunities for improvement on Friday night while I'm, walking my dog or something. And that means Monday morning, Jeff is going to get a message that says, hey, we need to make a change to the signal timing at this intersection. And what's awesome is it's usually done within a few minutes. So I think that's a really gratifying part of something I really appreciate about what Jeff does in his role. But it is really hard to switch off, especially kind of just being out in public and always looking at the streets through that lens.
Gina, do people corner you at restaurants and ask you to fix their streets?
I can't go anywhere or do anything, really, without someone, often family, but acquaintances, people that know me and I don't know them, or they know of me. So, yeah, it's pretty constant, but it's good. It's good that, we're out there in the community, we're part of the community, and people know that they can bug us, and they do. And that's okay. It's how we it's how we learn a lot of what's going on out there. If it weren't for those contacts, if we didn't live here, we wouldn't hear or know or see half of what we do and understand how things work and importantly, how things don't work when they should.
As you heard in this episode, while we may not be able to fix every road as fast as we'd like, we're working hard to bring Petaluma up to the standards you expect and deserve from your full-service city. If you want to learn more about our streets program, fill out the Safe Streets nomination form, or see a map of current and future planned repairs, go to cityofpetaluma.org/streets. Next episode, we'll be hearing from our fire department about our fire risk here in Petaluma and what you can do to stay safe this fire season. Until then, thank you to Gina Benedetti-Petnic, Jeff Stutsman, Bjorn Griepenburg, and Jessica Medina for sharing your work with us. One Petaluma is produced at the KPCA studio. Thank you to Rob Tomaszewski and Darren Racusen for studio production. And most of all, thank you for listening. We're grateful for your time and for your love of Petaluma. Have a question you'd like answered? Email us at onepetaluma@cityofpetaluma.org. We may feature your questions in a future episode. In the meantime, don't forget to follow us on social media or sign up for our bi-weekly emails. Just visit cityofpetaluma.org/subscribe. Thanks again, Petaluma, and have a great day.